George W. Bush was the 43rd President of the United States. He served from 2001 to 2009. He was a member of the Republican Party and is part of the Bush family. Before becoming president, Bush was the governor of Texas from 1995 to 2000. His leadership style made him a key figure in American politics. As president, Bush led the country through some of its most difficult times, including the September 11 attacks in 2001. Bush was known for his strong responses to these events. He launched the War on Terror to fight against terrorism. He also focused on improving education through the No Child Left Behind Act. However, his presidency faced challenges, such as the Iraq War and Hurricane Katrina. Some people supported his actions, while others strongly disagreed. After his presidency, Bush focused on art and helping veterans. His paintings and work with former soldiers have gained attention and respect. Bush's presidency was both praised and criticized. Some say he helped make America safer. Others feel his policies caused problems at home and abroad. Today, George W. Bush is remembered for his leadership during major events in U.S. history. He remains a figure that inspires debate. His presidency is often seen as one that shaped the modern world, leaving a legacy that people continue to discuss. George Walker Bush was born on July 6, 1946, in New Haven, Connecticut. He was the first child of George H. W. Bush and Barbara Bush. His family had a strong connection to politics. His father, George H. W. Bush, later became the 41st President of the United States. George grew up in Texas with his 4 siblings. They lived in Midland and later in Houston. His family was well known and respected. George had a younger sister named Robin, who sadly died at a very young age from leukemia. Her death had a big impact on the family. Growing up, George was described as friendly and confident. He loved sports and had a competitive nature. He enjoyed baseball and rugby the most. Bush first went to public schools in Midland, Texas. Later, his family moved to Houston, and he attended a private school called the Kincaid School. For high school, George attended Phillips Academy in Massachusetts. This was a boarding school where students lived on campus. At Phillips Academy, George was active in sports and clubs. He played baseball and even became the head cheerleader during his senior year. Despite being active in school life, George was not known for being a top student. He admitted later that his grades were average. After high school, George attended Yale University, where he studied history. He graduated in 1968 with a Bachelor of Arts degree. During his time at Yale, Bush joined a fraternity and became its president. He was also a cheerleader for the university's sports teams. After Yale, George entered Harvard Business School in 1973. He graduated in 1975 with an MBA, becoming the first U.S. president with this degree. George's education shaped his personality and future career. His schools taught him discipline and teamwork. His time at Yale and Harvard also gave him confidence and connections, which helped him later in politics. Bush's early years showed a mix of fun, effort, and personal growth. These experiences guided him to his future roles in leadership. After graduating from Harvard, George W. Bush returned to Texas to start his career. He worked in the oil industry, which was important in Texas. In 1977, he founded his own company called Arbusto Energy. This company searched for oil, but it struggled because oil prices were low. To save his company, it merged with another business called Spectrum 7 in 1984. Bush became the chairman of this new company. Despite his hard work, the company faced challenges. In 1986, it became part of Harken Energy, where Bush served on the board of directors. Around this time, Bush started to take a greater interest in politics. Following in his father's footsteps, his family name and connections helped him gain opportunities, but he still needed to prove himself as a leader. In 1989, Bush became part of a group that bought the Texas Rangers, a Major League Baseball team. He invested $500,000 of his own money. Bush became one of the main managers of the team. He attended games and worked to improve the team's stadium and popularity. When he sold his shares in 1998, he earned over $15 million. This success gave him confidence and support for his political future. Bush's first try in politics came in 1978 when he ran for Congress in Texas. He wanted to represent a rural district. However, his opponent, Kent Hans, won by portraying Bush as out of touch with the local voters. Bush lost the election. This loss taught him valuable lessons. He learned how important it was to connect with voters and understand their needs. In the late 1980s, Bush moved to Washington, D.C. to help his father's presidential campaign. He worked as an advisor and helped with media relations. This gave him experience in national politics. These early jobs and ventures helped shape Bush into a determined leader, preparing him for bigger roles in the future. George W. Bush became the governor of Texas in 1995 after defeating Ann Richards, the current governor at the time. He focused on four key issues during his campaign: improving education, reforming welfare, reducing crime, and changing the legal system. Bush's victory made him a rising star in the Republican Party and brought national attention to his leadership style. During his time as governor, Bush introduced education reforms. He increased funding for schools and pushed for higher standards for students and teachers. He signed the Texas Reading Initiative, which helped young students improve their reading skills. This program became very popular. Another key achievement was his support for renewable energy. Under his leadership, Texas became a leader in wind-generated electricity in the United States. Bush also made changes to the criminal justice system. He introduced tougher laws for violent crimes and expanded the use of the death penalty. Critics argued that these policies were too harsh. However, supporters said they helped reduce crime rates across Texas. His policies on crime made him a popular figure among conservative voters who wanted stricter rules for public safety. In 1998, Bush was re-elected as governor with a record-breaking victory. He became the first governor of Texas to serve 2 four-year terms. During his second term, Bush focused on faith-based programs. These programs allowed religious groups to help with community issues. His approval ratings were very high during his time as governor, and many people began to see him as a future presidential candidate. One of Bush's memorable actions as governor was declaring Jesus Day in Texas. He asked people to serve others and promote kindness. By the end of his time as governor, Bush was seen as a successful leader who brought changes to Texas. His achievements as governor helped him gain support when he decided to run for president in 2000. In 2000, George W. Bush ran for president of the United States. He was chosen as the Republican candidate and faced Al Gore, the Democratic candidate. The election was one of the closest in U.S. history. The results in Florida were so close that a recount was ordered to count the votes again. After weeks of debate, the Supreme Court ruled in Bush's favor. He became the 43rd president, even though he did not win the most votes overall. Bush started his first term in 2001. Early in his presidency, he focused on tax cuts to boost the economy. These cuts reduced taxes for many Americans. Another major action was the No Child Left Behind Act. This law set higher standards for schools and required regular testing of students. However, the biggest event of Bush's first term was the September 11, 2001, terrorist attacks. These attacks changed the focus of his presidency. After the attacks, Bush declared a war on terror. He promised to fight terrorism around the world to protect the United States. Bush ordered the invasion of Afghanistan in 2001. The goal was to remove the Taliban, destroy al-Qaeda, and find Osama bin Laden. In 2003, Bush also decided to invade Iraq. He believed that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction and connections to terrorists, but these claims were later questioned. The Iraq War was supported by some Americans, but strongly criticized by others. Many felt it was not based on strong evidence. At home, Bush also signed the Patriot Act, which gave the government more power to stop terrorist threats. His decisions during his first term shaped the United States' role in the world and started major debates about security and freedom. In 2004, Bush ran for re-election. His main opponent was John Kerry, a senator from Massachusetts. Bush focused his campaign on national security, the economy, and his leadership during the war. He won a close race to secure a second term. Bush's first term was marked by big decisions, especially on terrorism and war, which shaped the direction of the country for years. George W. Bush began his second term as president in 2005, after defeating John Kerry in the election. He focused on several key goals, such as making changes to Social Security and immigration laws. However, these efforts did not succeed. One of his biggest successes was appointing two justices, John Roberts and Samuel Alito, to the Supreme Court. During his second term, Bush faced many challenges. One major event was Hurricane Katrina in 2005, which caused destruction in New Orleans. The government was criticized for responding too slowly to the disaster. Many felt the help for victims was not well organized. Bush admitted mistakes were made. He promised to do more to help rebuild the city and improve disaster management. The Iraq War continued to be a major issue. By 2007, violence in Iraq had increased, and many Americans were against the war. To address this, Bush announced a troop surge, sending more soldiers to Iraq to improve security. This move reduced violence, but criticism of the war and Bush's leadership remained high during his second term. Another major event was the 2008 financial crisis, which hurt the economy and caused many people to lose jobs and homes. Bush and Congress worked on a rescue plan called the Troubled Asset Relief Program, TARP, to support the financial system. The crisis was a key reason for Bush's low approval ratings, as many felt the government had failed to prevent it. Bush also worked on health programs, such as Medicare Part D, which helped older people pay for prescription drugs. He also signed agreements on free trade with other countries to strengthen global business. Despite some successes, his second term was marked by criticism, including over the wars, Hurricane Katrina, and the financial crisis. By the time Bush left office in 2009, his approval ratings were very low, but he defended his decisions. He believed history would show that his actions were made to protect the United States. His second term remains one of the most debated periods in recent American history. George W. Bush's presidency left a mixed legacy. Some people remember his strong leadership during tough times, like after the September 11th attacks. Others criticize his decisions, especially on the Iraq War and the 2008 financial crisis, which caused hardship for many people. His actions as president created lasting changes in the U.S., including new security measures and large tax cuts. After leaving office, Bush's approval ratings were very low, but over time, opinions about him began to improve. Many people now see him as someone who faced great challenges and tried his best to protect the country. Some of his programs, like his AIDS relief efforts in Africa, are praised for saving millions of lives. Bush's leadership style is often described as bold and confident. He believed in making strong decisions, even if they were unpopular. Supporters admire him for standing by his beliefs and acting quickly in times of crisis, such as during the War on Terror. However, critics argue that some of his choices lacked planning and caused problems, especially the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. In his personal life, Bush focused on art and helping others after his presidency. He painted portraits of veterans and wrote books about his experiences. He has also stayed active in charity work, supporting military families and global health programs. His post-presidency actions have helped improve his reputation among both Americans and people worldwide. Historians continue to study Bush's presidency, debating his successes and failures. Some rank him in the lower half of U.S. presidents. Others believe history will judge him more kindly as time passes and his actions are viewed in a broader context. Bush's presidency remains a subject of discussion, showing the lasting impact of his time in office. George W. Bush's time as president was filled with both achievements and controversies. He led the U.S. through challenging moments in history. His leadership during the September 11th attacks and his actions in the War on Terror are key parts of his legacy. However, decisions like the Iraq War and the government's handling of Hurricane Katrina brought strong criticism. Bush made significant changes to U.S. policies, including tax cuts, education reforms, and increased national security measures. Programs like the No Child Left Behind Act and AIDS relief efforts in Africa left a lasting impact on education and global health. Yet, the financial crisis in 2008 and rising national debt made his presidency a difficult time for many Americans. After leaving office, Bush worked to rebuild his image by focusing on painting, writing, and helping veterans and military families. Public opinion of him has softened, with some now seeing him as a leader who made hard decisions during a complex time. His presidency remains one of the most debated in modern U.S. history, showing his lasting influence on the world. History will continue to judge George W. Bush based on his leadership, decisions, and the changes his actions brought to the country. Some see him as a bold and determined leader, while others view his choices as mistakes that hurt the U.S. and the world. His presidency teaches us the importance of leadership during both peaceful and difficult times in history.